Hey folks, this is Rhykker with a gaming news wrap-up video where we discuss the happenings of the week. This week's topics include the reveal of the new Diablo 2 Resurrected patch 2.4 and ladder dates, the announcement of a new Witcher game, some surprisingly good changes coming to World of Warcraft, and more. As always, discussion timestamps can be found in the description below, but right before you skip ahead, just a quick reminder to ring that sub notification bell to be alerted to new Saturday episodes and stay up to date with gaming news highlights. Now before we move on, just a quick word from this video's sponsor, Squarespace. I built my website Rhykker.com using Squarespace, and I was able to do everything myself, quickly and easily, and with zero education in the field, all thanks to how easy Squarespace is to work with. Watch how easily I update my Diablo 3 page to embed my latest YouTube videos. Everything was set up with some templates that I was able to easily customize to my needs with no knowledge of coding required. You can even connect your social media profiles to automatically push website content to your socials, and set up members-only areas with exclusive content. Basically, if you want to build a website, I recommend Squarespace. And Squarespace is currently offering my viewers 10% off your first purchase with them. Just go to squarespace.com/Rhykker or click the link in the description to sign up and start building your online presence. That's squarespace.com/RHYKKER and use code Rhykker to get started today. In our first story, former Mass Effect director Casey Hudson has revealed a hint at what his new team, Humanoid Studios, has been working on. A multi-platform AAA game focusing on character-driven narrative in an all-new science fiction universe. And they shared a couple pieces of concept art. I hear they're going to call the game Mass Effect. In other news, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands released this week, a Dungeons & Dragons inspired looter shooter standalone spin-off in the Borderlands series, starring the voices of Andy Samberg, Will Arnett, and Wanda Sykes. The reviews are coming in and the game is doing pretty well, averaging about an 8 out of 10. Some say it's better than Borderlands 3, some say it suffers from some of the same problems as Borderlands 3, but that it definitely has a better story than Borderlands 3 at least. No one is saying it's better than Borderlands 2, but I turn the question to you folks. If you have picked up the game, what do you think? Sound off in the comments. In other news, according to known leaker Tom Henderson, a new Prince of Persia game is in the works. Henderson claims that Ubisoft has been preparing a massive showcase event to make announcements for 20 different titles, including Skull and Bones, which seems to have been in development hell for some time, having been in development for nearly a decade. Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora, which was revealed in 2017. The Division: Heartland, a sequel to 2020's Immortals: Phoenix Rising. Assassin's Creed Rift, which is a previously leaked upcoming Assassin's Creed game. Assassin's Creed Infinity, which was revealed in 2021 and is said to be the most ambitious Assassin's Creed game to date. Ghost Recon Frontline, which had closed beta testing earlier this year. X-Defiant, a formerly Tom Clancy branded game first revealed in 2021, the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake that was revealed in 2020 and mocked endlessly until the devs were shamed into silence, The Crew 3, which was leaked last year, Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, first announced last year, Roller Champions, which is allegedly ready for launch, as per Henderson, Beyond Good and Evil 2, the Splinter Cell remake, The Division Mobile, and as we said, a new Prince of Persia game that will be 2.5D and take inspiration from the Ori franchise. The Ubisoft Montpellier studio is said to be involved, who are best known for Rayman and Beyond Good and Evil. In other news, the Guild Wars 2 devs released a blog post discussing the future of the 10-year-old game, which just recently saw the release of its third expansion, End of Dragons. The devs reconfirmed that the game will release on Steam, and while they could not commit to a date, they said they're aiming for this year. They also revealed that End of Dragons outsold their second expansion, and that the number of active Guild Wars 2 players has doubled over the past 3 years. They also confirmed that there will be a fourth expansion for the game, but told us not to expect news anytime soon, as this is the earliest they've ever revealed an expansion. So to me that means we shouldn't expect a release before 2025. But it's just wonderful to see the game thriving even after so long. It released to universal acclaim back in 2012, and it's only gotten better since. In World of Warcraft news, the devs announced that the Mage Tower solo challenge event is returning to the game as a permanent feature. Originally introduced as a challenge available only for a short window of time every few months, as of next week, it'll be accessible at any time, and the community seems to be responding positively to having more content in the game that isn't time limited. But I turn the question to you folks, our our WoW raiders. What are your thoughts? Because in other WoW news, the devs announced that Shadowlands Season 4 will come later this year with even higher tier PvP gear and other season rewards, including mounts and titles. But they also plan to make some shakeups to their formula by changing the Mythic Plus dungeon pool to include 8 old dungeons from past expansions, 2 of which they're getting the community to vote for. For Season 4 raiding, they're thinking of adding a progenitor-themed affix system to add new challenging twists and improved loot to old raids to make them relevant in Season 4. Again, we're seeing Blizzard continue to, turn over this new leaf of returning old content to the game, which is a great way to keep players occupied while waiting for new content. I mean, we've had 18 years of World of Warcraft. There's so much content there that has been obsoleted, that can be dusted off, polished, put back into the rotation to keep things fresh. Now, while this is good news, or it seems to be, it does suggest that the next expansion will not release this year. I know some people were crossing their fingers for that. Historically, a new expansion has released every 2 years, and Shadowlands released in November 2020. We know that the new expansion will be revealed on April 19th, and at this point it's likely to be at least about a year from the reveal before we'll get that expansion release. And to finish up the Warcraft news, after 9 years on the WoW community team, Josh Allen, aka Lore, has left Blizzard, and he'll be revealing what he's doing next on April 19th. In Lost Ark news, the update hit this week with the changes we discussed in last week's video, namely more honing materials for everyone, and the start of ranked PvP. One way those honing materials are being delivered is via a new casual Guardian Raid event, which you can enter once per day and will last roughly 1 month. When you enter this event, your gear is balanced to the Guardian's level, so your gear score going in is irrelevant. Then the ranked PvP will also reward honing materials. The better you do over the course of the season, the better your rewards at the end of the season. The Arcesia Grand Prix has also been adjusted to be more rewarding, and the devs are also just giving everyone a bunch of gifts in the form of honing materials, skins, pets, mounts, and more. Yeah, you see that this is the wrong message to teach players. Now they're gonna know that complaining is rewarded. In other news, a new Witcher game has been announced, kicking off a new saga. And it'll be built on Unreal Engine 5 instead of CD Projekt Red's proprietary Red engine, through a partnership with Epic Games. Now, we have no other details about release dates or plot, but the devs did previously say this is not The Witcher 4, Geralt will not be returning. They did, however, reveal this promotional image and confirm to Eurogamer that the medallion we see here is shaped after a lynx. And before you go Googling to see if there's a school of the lynx in the Witcher universe, know that the result that turns up is fanfiction. There is no official mention of a School of the Lynx in any source material. School of the Cat, sure, but that's different with a different medallion. The devs also confirmed that this new game will not be, quote, exclusive to one storefront, though it's difficult to believe that it'll release on Steam, and this wouldn't be the first time Epic strikes a deal along the lines of, you can release on any platform other than Steam. It's just hard to imagine this partnership happening, the game moving to Unreal Engine 5 and Epic allowing the game to sell on its biggest competitor. You can argue that they'll have a nice deal where they get a cut, but that cut would certainly be bigger if it would be on the Epic store. And, I mean, what are people gonna do? Not buy a Witcher game? Then the game director, Jason Slama, who was a UI programmer on The Witcher 3 and also worked on Gwent, has stated on Twitter that no crunch will happen on his watch. This was his response to someone referencing the headlines about bad working conditions at the company prior to the release of Cyberpunk. It's a nice sentiment, but we'll see. In Diablo news, starting with Diablo 2 Resurrected, we have official release dates for the launch of patch 2.4 and the first ladder. And it's a little later than initially hoped, but sooner than some people expected. The patch will release on April 14th, and the ladder will begin on April 28th. They have to leave a gap in case any unforeseen issues arise once the patch goes live. For instance, last week they tried to deploy server improvements that they'd tested on PTR, only to run into unforeseen issues that could only arise on a live environment. And this is ultimately what caused the release to be pushed out of March. Now, the good news is that these improvements will mean the servers will perform better during high load times, so all those problems we were getting back during the launch of D2R should not happen again. It's also been confirmed that the patch will release on PC and console on the same day. In Diablo 4 news, we have the quarterly update blog releasing next week, and we know that its focus will be on environment art. And in response to some disappointment regarding the lack of updates about systems or game mechanics, PezRadar commented, quote, "We typically have some system updates in various blogs, but I also think we are getting to a point where words become harder to understand these items, and thus it gets harder to gather valuable feedback based off what people are interpreting. We will still have updates in these blogs, and they will constantly evolve until release, but it may just be better for people to experience and play them in testing to gather such feedback. There'll be quite a bit of time to do that once we get into the testing phases." And he raises a really good point. Evaluating a game system in a vacuum is very challenging. Imagine someone shows you just the smile of the Mona Lisa. How do you give proper feedback on that without seeing how it fits into the bigger picture? Or even, how do you give good feedback on a hamburger without taking a bite? And lastly, in Diablo 3 news, we got official notice that Season 25 will come to an end on April 10th, and while we have no start date yet for Season 26, April 15th seems pretty likely, or at the very latest, April 22nd. And that's going to wrap up this week's video. But do be sure to have checked out last week's video in which we discussed the massive change Blizzard made to Diablo 3 Season 26's new endgame mode. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind the scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. Check out these other videos and subscribe to join Rhykkers Raiders for more gaming content.